I'm all set.
Good evening. It's Tuesday, March 26th of 2024. This is the Stoughton City Council meeting, and the first order of business would be the roll call. Clerk Kristen.
Okay, Butler,
Here. Can't hear a thing, so
Jensen.
hang on a second. Wait till me if they hear it.
Yeah, we can't hear you very well yet, Candy, so hang
Jensen,
on.
we got Jensen here.
Okay, now I got it.
okay, so Jensen is there, correct?
There we go.
Okay. Reeves,
Here.
Payton,
Here.
Schumacher,
Here.
Caravello,
Here.
Bosniak, Scanlon,
Here.
Hirsch,
Here.
Sherlucky,
Here.
Lagaki,
Here.
Hiley.
Here.
Okay, we have 11 alders present, and Mayaski is absent and excused.
Okay, thank you. Next item, we are certified in compliance with open meeting laws, and there's nobody signed up for public comment. And what I'd like to do is just go right into the action items, and then we'll come back to the presentation. We'll make that part of the resolution. Yeah, I got it. Yep, thanks. So the first item for action would be the consent agenda, and there's a few items in there. I would entertain a motion to approve the consent
Motion
agenda.
to approve.
Motion by Jensen, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Sherlucky. Would anybody like anything acted on separately from the consent agenda? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? None opposed. Then we'll go to, we're going to go to item 14 because we have two people that have the one item and they'd like to get on with their evening. So item number 14 is the resolution from the council regarding R138. And I'm going to let Attorney Dregney kick this one off, or Attorney Matthew. I don't know which one. Okay.
I'm here. I got it. Thank you, Mayor. The reason this is before you is that the resolution that approved the certified survey map for the STI Holdings development, and that resolution, by the way, was approved in September of 2023, I believe. That resolution contains a variety of conditions. Several conditions relate to the need for plans and specifications for the public improvements and stormwater management facilities that will serve those lots to be approved. So the certified survey map itself can't be deemed approved until those plans and specifications are approved. The developer and the city's consultants have been working to achieve that objective to get to final approval of those plans and specifications, but we're not quite there yet. Planning Director Chris is on, and she can update you on exactly where we are if there are questions about that. But at a high level, the developer has submitted complete plans and specifications for all public improvements and for all stormwater management related work. Those plans have been reviewed by the city's engineering consultants. They have provided their comments and feedback, and we're now waiting for the developer to incorporate the final changes that have been requested in their plans so they can be resubmitted for final approval. The reason I'm asking you to remove these conditions that those plans be approved from that resolution is the deadline we're facing in the development agreement with the developer and in the agreements that we have with the Department of Transportation. I need to be able to certify to the Department of Transportation that the development agreement is effective. And if we don't get that certification taken care of by the end of this week, then the agreement we have with the developer and the agreements that we have with the Department of Transportation will effectively terminate, and we'll have to figure out how to resurrect this thing. And the only thing that's holding, one of the things that, unless we take these conditions out of this resolution, that I won't be able to certify that everything is complete, unless we can get these plans and specifications finally approved this week. We may make that. I don't know, because it's Tuesday. As I say, the developer did not receive the city engineer's final review comment until today. They need time now to incorporate those changes and turn them around and get them back to us. And our engineers need to review those and verify that everything is good to go. And there may still be a little thing here or there that needs to be corrected. So I just don't know if we're going to get that done by the end of this week. So by removing these 3 conditions from the CSM approval resolution, we take that item off the table. So I don't have to worry about that in certifying to the DOT that we have a development agreement that is approved and effective. One of the things I would say if you're concerned about this in terms of, well, why are we saying that, why don't we need that condition anymore, is that the development agreement itself requires the developer to obtain city approval of the plans and specifications for the public improvement before the developer can proceed with any construction of public improvement work. So I'm not concerned that by taking these conditions out of the CSM approval resolution that we're going to have a problem. We have this well covered by the development agreement itself. So that's that's why this is before you. My recommendation would be to approve the resolution. And as I said, Planning Director Chris is on if you have any questions about the status of the city's review and approval of the plans and specifications.
Did you have anything you want to add, Chris?
No, I think Matt covered it really well. We've got essentially 3 mechanisms in place that are covering those 3 things. We've got the developer agreement. They have a CSM review memo that's been sent to them outlining what they need for me to even sign the CSM. At this point, it's not signed. They have to meet those requirements in order for the city to approve it. And then the third is that we do have Strand's comments out to them, which they had today. Looks like there's a lot of comments, but a lot of them are like, label this, shift that. They're pretty minor. So I know in the plans that they're reading something like 95% done or something like that on MSA's end.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions from alders? If not, I would entertain a motion for the resolution.
I'll move to approve resolution R45 of 2024.
Okay, motion by Caravello. Is there a second? Second. Second by Jensen. And any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye.
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 And any opposed? That motion carries. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
All right. Next item is Ordinance 5 of 2024. And this one here came from Public Safety, Alderperson Jensen. Second reading. Mike?
This is ordinance 5 of 2024, an ordinance to amend section 70-185. Public Safety recommends approval on a 4-5-0 vote. I'd move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Peyton. Alderperson Jensen?
It's just like we said before. I think it covers it fairly well here in the packet. Making some changes to try and unify our parking regulations. Any questions?
All right, any questions or comments from alders? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? None opposed, that motion carries. All right, we're going to go into communications while I'm setting up the presentation for the corp plan. Are there any communications from alders?
Yes, actually. If you have not, if I could be recognized by the mayor, I guess, first.
Go ahead, please do.
Thank you. The election is coming around the bend, and if you are interested in becoming an election official for any future elections, working the polling station, there are a myriad of other opportunities there, or the polling stations in Stoughton. Feel free to speak to our city clerk about opportunities there. We always need help, and it is a big election season, so thought I would just put that out there.
Thank you for doing that. Anything from Clerk Christian on that?
No, thank you, DJ. No, we are in need of poll workers or election inspectors. We are going into November with additional needs at various tables or stations at the polls. So we are definitely in need of election inspectors. So provide your application now. We'll take a look at it. Thank you.
And how's the spring election going for you?
Good. We're ready. We're ready.
I see people coming into City Hall.
Yeah, we've had about 150 in-person absentee ballots so far that we've issued, so a few days left.
All right, thank you. Other communications from alders? All right, hearing none. Emily is here from MSA. She's gonna go over our comprehensive outdoor recreation plan. We do have a resolution on this one. I guess we can go ahead and make the motion if you'd like, or we can do the presentation first. Do you have a preference? Okay, all right, and Superintendent King is on as well. Do you want to make any comments before Emily begins?
Well, we did prior to our first, when we got our first draft, we did have the sustainability, some members from the sustainability committee reach out. So we did sit down with them, Chair Caravello and I, and added some objectives and goals, which I think Emily can highlight through this presentation. But otherwise, I think it kind of does a great job of covering everything and kind of setting our plan moving forward.
All right, thank you. The floor is yours.
Thanks.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So like Tim said, my name is Emily Soderberg. I'm a planning project manager at MSA, and I've had the pleasure of working on updating the city's comprehensive outdoor recreation plan since last fall. And I've been happy to work with Tony and Dan Glenn before Tony. So if you want to advance the slide. So just briefly, why do we do comprehensive outdoor recreation planning? Primarily, the gist of the reason is that the DNR requires that a city have a plan that's adopted and updated every 5 years so that you can maintain eligibility for state and federal grants, notably the Knowles Nelson Stewardship Program, which we know the city has applied for multiple grants before. But in addition to that kind of legal or that statutory requirement from the DNR, it's a good practice to just, regularly be checking in on your park and rec system, updating goals like we did with the Sustainability Committee, and then also identifying those projects for capital improvement planning. Next slide. This is just a brief one running down kind of the major sections of the plan. Starting with sort of an overview of the city, the goals and needs there. an analysis of needs and demands, and then the recommendations and implementation. Next slide. So this demand analysis, this is something that's required by the DNR that all corps have, and we rely heavily on the some best practices and standards set by the National Recreation and Park Association, or the NRPA. So the NRPA has had a long-standing recommendation that municipalities provide roughly 10.5 acres of parkland per 1,000 residents. And so what we have in this table here is Stoughton's current population and then the DOA, Department of Administration, projections through 2040, with that 10.5 per 1,000 standard kind of applied to the current population and then through 2040. The gist of what this table is saying is that based off of that standard, Stoughton is in a very good place of exceeding it. So we have currently there's a surplus, and I have to apologize, my my glasses prescription is out of date. Okay, I can see it better over here. But currently there's a surplus of 148 acres beyond that kind of best practice national standard. And then by 2040, as the population grows slightly, that surplus will fall to 138. So at the end of the day, Stoughton's doing fantastic in terms of providing an excess of parkland per 1,000 residents. The graph on the right-hand side is just showing where Stoughton stacks up nationally amongst jurisdictions that have less than 20,000 people. And on a park, I think this is the park acreage per capita, where Stoughton is exceeding basically the upper quartile distribution for jurisdictions under 20,000. So another good indicator that the city is doing well. Next slide.
I just have a quick question before we advance. So the chart really assumes that we won't have any additional parkland when we get the growth.
Yes.
So any parkland that we get will continue to.
That is correct. So this analysis is assuming that no additional parkland is added, but we know, as we'll get to later in the slide, that more parkland will be added to it. But the way that the NRPA kind of suggests that you do this analysis is you base it off of what the current supply is, if it didn't change.
So with this, did you include the new parks in like KPW Park, the 51 West, and Stoughton Trailers Park?
Yes, so all of those parks are accounted for in the plan, and they're also accounted for in the proposed. We have a map that I have in a couple slides that shows all the parks that are planned in development and are going to be coming online in the next couple years, as well as a couple that still need to be platted. But this analysis is basically just doing a snapshot of, you know, if the city was to grow but parkland remained the same, what would that ratio of park to 1,000 people be? Next slide. So another kind of standard analysis that the NRPA recommends is, in addition to that quantitative analysis that we just looked at, is a geographic analysis. And so the kind of park service area standard that MSA utilizes is this is called the 10-minute walk analysis. And this is a best practice that's promoted by the NRPA, the Urban Land Institute, and the Trust for Public Land. And it's based off of this kind of national campaign that's been going on for probably the last 5 years that is trying to promote that cities across America, that everyone can live within a roughly 10-minute walk of a park. And so if you imagine kind of drawing a 10-minute walking radius around each of the parks in Stoughton and then added them all up together, aggregated them, that's what this area in green is showing. And so what it's really saying is that the vast majority of the city is covered within this 10-minute walk area, or put another way, the majority of residents live within a 10-minute walk of a park. And I want to point out in this map, there is kind of one exception on the west side of town, but once the T-Nassau Park is opened, that will close in that gap. So even the one gap that's kind of showing, which I should also explain, we showed the underlying residential zoning. If in any areas that aren't covered by the green 10-minute walk area, and really one of the only major gaps is that area on the west, but T-Nassau Park will fill that in when that park comes online. We did a survey as part of this planning process. We had a lot of the questions, we intentionally kind of carried them forward from the previous core planning process, just so that we could do kind of a comparison of how opinions changed over time. The bulk of the report has kind of that analysis, and then as well in the appendix, we have the full survey results. But for this presentation, I wanted to focus on a couple of questions that we asked pertaining to kind of survey respondents' feelings about different proposed recreational facilities, because we know that that's been a topic of discussion for a while in the city. And so we proposed kind of an option A and an option B, where option A was a larger kind of indoor community facility, more expensive. I believe 33 million was the proposed budget. And option B was an outdoor aquatics facility, slightly smaller price tag, still $11 million. And so the first question we asked was just a plain, what's your preference between these two options? 50% of survey respondents chose option B, and then 34 chose option A, and then I believe 16% chose neither. We also asked subsequent questions, basically getting at, trying to explain to the survey takers that the funding for either of these options would come from a combination of fundraising and property tax increases. And we asked folks, we kind of laid out a number of different scenarios where, if we fundraised 5%, then property taxes would go up this X amount. And we have like a specific page in the report that summarizes this. But at the end of the day, what I wanted to highlight here was that while the highest selected choice for both of these options was the none option, meaning they didn't want any funding scenario, still those were respectively 35% and 25% for option A and B. But over 50% of the people who answered this question, the survey, were actually willing to do some combination of fundraising and property tax increases. So the majority of survey takers in both of these scenarios were willing to have some degree, were willing to take some degree of property tax increase in combination with fundraising to see either of these options brought to fruition. So I think this is helpful information for you all as elected officials. And you can dive into the results a little bit more in the survey. But I just wanted to I thought this was an important enough part of the survey that I wanted to highlight it here. So as you were saying, this is our map of kind of the proposed parks and trails. For all the parks that we know we've had master planning done for them, we have a timeline for when they're going to be brought into the development and open to the public. Those are all highlighted in that green color with their names are on there. And there's a larger version of this map in the plan as well, if you want to zoom in and dive in a little bit deeper. And then we also have some kind of more approximate locations for proposed parks that are maybe a little bit farther out in the future. And then we also have some proposed trail locations as well. So we have the SDI location up in the north, T-Nasik on the west side. We have the two 51 West parks, and then the more recent Tigan Farm Park down in the south. This is just a snapshot of a much longer table that's at the end of the report that kind of lays out the recommended improvements for each park, and then a corresponding kind of priority time frame for when this recommendation would be implemented, and then a corresponding cost estimate. Some of these recommendations came through conversations I had with Dan Glenn and Tony. Some of them were carried forward from the previous plan, and as well as we carried some recommendations that are specifically already included in the city's capital improvement budget, and we reiterated them here. And so those recommendations would be one-to-one for what would be included in the CIP, the city's CIP. And that's what I have for you. Happy to answer any questions. And to Tony's point about the two goals that we added from the sustainability plan, admittedly, I can't repeat them word for word, but I believe one of them had to do with turf management and trying to prioritize or trying to identify like turf areas within the city that could possibly be turned over to a more passive management strategy. And then I believe that was one of the primary ones. But if you go to the goals and objective page, they're the last two goals that are in that chapter 3.
All right, thank you. Any questions from alders? They're easy on you tonight. Must be
Thank you.
saving it for me. All right. Thank you for being here.
No problem. It's my pleasure.
So we do have a resolution, and I can pull it up here in just a moment. And this would be coming from Park and Rec Committee, which is Alderperson Caravello.
Yes, this is Resolution R38 of 2024, authorizing and directing the proper city officials to approve the comprehensive outdoor recreation plan for 2024 through 2028. I so move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Peyton. And one last opportunity for questions or comments. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? None opposed. We'll see you in 5 years.
Sounds good. Thank you all so much.
Have a good night. Okay, next item, number 8. It looks like the next couple here are coming from Finance Committee meeting. Alderperson Schumacher.
All right, this is R39 of 2024. This is a resolution for the City of Stoughton Fire EMS Volunteer Wisconsin Retirement System Correction. So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderperson Butler. Alderperson Schumacher.
There was a change in some accounting practices that resulted in noticing that some WRS wasn't getting collected from volunteer wages. So this is an effort to correct that.
All right. Director Ellinger, anything you want to add?
We went back in the system as far back as 2008 because that's as far as we could go, where we still had records. Everything else was from the prior computer system, so that was the reason for going back to that point. And one of the things in the resolution is talking about the balances that are due from both current employees and past employees. And after discussing it internally with staff, we thought it was more appropriate to have the city pay for the entire cost of the employer and employee through calendar year 23, just because we thought trying to collect, especially from former employees, would be more than difficult. So the recommendation is that we pay 100% of the liability. We've got estimates in there for interest through December 31st. So between the WRS charges and interest, we've estimated at 118, 191 through year end. And we're accruing interest until we get this situation handled. So we'd like to get it done and down the road.
All right. Director Gillingham, is there anything you want to add? I know you were involved with the conversations.
You bet, absolutely. This predates both Dave's and my tenure here with the city, so we were trying to figure out the history of this and going back. I have had many discussions with WRS to confirm that we did need to go back as far as our computer system would allow us. I think the important thing here for all of you to remember as you're going into a vote here, first of all, Dave has this budgeted, is number one. But number two, keeping in mind that these are volunteers. So the individuals that we have to pay the WRS on, we do have paid volunteers, but looking at some studies today, just at the fire numbers, the number of calls that these individuals are taking, they're not making a lot of money. So coming back and trying to collect a debt on individuals who are volunteering their time is not real palatable. So we didn't know that this was due to them. We didn't know that we needed to be collecting it. We've corrected it as of 1/1. But I would ask that you value your volunteers and show that we're going to take care of this and move forward. Thank you.
One thing to clarify, the 118,000 was a 2023 expense, so that was already taken into account with the year-end resolutions that we had. So this should not affect the 2024 budget other than the interest that's been accruing.
And I just wanted to add, I want to thank Director Ellinger for bringing this to our attention. He came across it in the course of his work. I don't know the specifics of that, but basically, once we discovered it, he took the initiative to report it to us and the WRS, which says a lot about his integrity. So I just really wanted to publicly acknowledge that. Any questions or comments from alders? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? None opposed, that motion carries. Next resolution, Alderperson Schumacher.
All right, this is R40 of 2024. This is a resolution that is the first amendment to payment for municipal services agreement. So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderperson Reeves. Alderperson Schumacher.
This is related to the Greenspire properties and the sale of those and the pilot that we get as a result of that agreement. There was just some subtle changes within the agreement in there. I think only 2 sections had minor adjustments in the language to it. So we've seen this one before, but this is just a little modification in the language.
All right, thank you. Anything you want to add, Director Ellinger?
Just the fact that both our city attorney, the attorney for the housing authority, and attorney for the buyer have all agreed on the language. So hopefully this is the last time we have to change anything. And this is time sensitive tonight simply because it has to be recorded with the Register of Deeds before the sale can occur.
Anything you want to add, Attorney Manthey?
The only thing I would add is the purpose of the changes is more or less personalizing this to Greenspire. So it adds references to Greenspire in the payment in lieu of taxes agreement or pilot agreement. And the section 2 and 3, which are the more substantive changes. Section 2 is more just clarifications, I guess, more than anything. Just removes a reference to the year 22, using it as an example for how the CPI would be applied, and then saying that it applies to Greenspire after it acquires the property. But otherwise, I think it's mostly just clarification that Greenspire wanted prior to closing on the property.
Any questions or comments from alders? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. The next 3 are coming from Personnel Committee. Alderperson Reeves.
Thank you. Resolution 41 of 2024, authorizing and directing the City of Stoughton Common Council to approve the position description changes due to the newly created EMS Fire Department. The position description for the fire chief has been updated to reflect the additional duties of the EMS department, and the title has been updated and is now EMS Fire Chief. And I would move for approval. Personnel Committee did pass this unanimously last evening.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderperson Sherlucky. Alderperson Reeves, you want to elaborate?
I'll give a little background. You'll notice that there has been a change in the organizational chart that's in your packet. And essentially, this process has been about a best practice model for EMS and fire services. But I will let Director Gillingham and or Chief Ripp add any additional information they'd like on the history and sort of what brought this to be.
So thank you for allowing us to bring this to you tonight as a time-sensitive matter. The reason that we brought it forward as time sensitive is this restructure was approved going into the 2024 budget, and we need to get moving forward. So we appreciate all of your patience with us here. We did complete the reorganization, the organizational chart for the reorg. And if you look at the structure here, we have Mayor Swadley. We should also have the Police and Fire Commission included in there, so we will add that update on there. We did meet with the fire and EMS staff last night to review this with them. We were able to add in the EMS and fire into one job description by not having to run that through the Police and Fire Commission. So just so everyone understands, day-to-day comes through the mayor, the other piece is the Police and Fire Commission. All of the positions across the top, the Operations Support Specialist, the duty, Deputy Chief EMS, leave out the AEMT, but we'll also talk about the Deputy Chief Fire Marshal and the Equipment Support Technician. Those are all existing positions that are receiving new titles because of the change with Josh moving into the EMS Fire Chief. So the first position description that we have in front of you, the changes that are all redlined for you are specifically looking at taking over those additional administrative functions on the EMS side. So that's what's been highlighted on here. We've added those into this description. Any further questions?
No questions so far. So the motion, initial motion here is for the EMS Fire Chief position. Hearing no questions. Oh, okay. President Hirsch, you have a question?
No, I don't have anything on the position, but it seems like right now we have a position and you already placed somebody in that position. I just want to make sure that everybody...
Yeah.
It's a good question.
That's a wonderful question. Thank you for asking that, Regina. The reason that we did that, it was based on the structure that we had shown you at the Committee of the Whole. We did have another position in there, but we knew we did not have funding for that. So the purpose of doing this, number one, is we have someone qualified internally. We have one person qualified, and that was our fire chief. Our fire chief is both certified as an AEMT to cover the EMS side, as well as fire chief, and also possesses those leadership skills that are required. The mayor has the ability to make the change to the job description, therefore it doesn't go out and it's not posted. So it was just additional duties added to Chief Rip's position.
Yeah, I mean, that was something that we reviewed with our labor attorney.
Yeah, that was reviewed with Attorney Zock, as well as I went through the PFC manual just to make sure that we were in complete compliance on this.
Yeah, we went all the way back into our charter ordinances.
Correct.
To make sure there wasn't anything in there that would limit our ability to do this, as well as our regular ordinances. So Candy had found our charter ordinances, so we basically we scanned it and we have it electronically now as well. And you know what we try to do here is we do the restructure here is really set up the chief and his support people up for success and really get them in a position where they can spend more time managing and less time especially in the EMS vehicle. And I think that was one of the key reasons for creating the position of the advanced EMT/firefighter, so we could get more boots on the ground. So far, we've filled one of those two positions.
That is correct. We filled one of the two positions. We have the second one that we're actively recruiting for at this point in time.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye.
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 And any opposed? That motion carries. All right, next one. Person Reeves.
This is going to be Resolution 42, 2024, authorizing and directing the City of Stoughton Common Council to approve the position description changes due to the newly created EMS Fire Department. The position description for the EMS Director has been updated to Deputy Chief EMS to reflect the change in responsibilities, and reporting. This position will report directly to the EMS fire chief. Personnel also approved this unanimously, and I would move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Sherlucky. Alderperson Reeves.
I will let Dr. Gillingham talk about this one as
Okay.
well.
Thank you, Lisa. The deputy chief position, if you go back to the slide, if you would please, with the organizational chart, it'll show on there, if you look at the right-hand side, we had our fire chief EMS in place, and then prior to that, we had the deputy chief fire marshal reporting in, as well as the equipment support technician. We're mirroring that structure on the EMS side by putting in place a deputy chief for EMS. So there's a title change there, as well as that position will now report in through the EMS fire chief. So that's the change there. You'll notice on the position description, if you flip back to that one, that the red line mainly in there is taking those administrative functions and overall oversight of the budgetary responsibilities and moving those under the chief for the EMS and fire, and then the deputy chief EMS will be working in tandem with them as a support person. So it'll be similar to what we're already doing on the fire side. Any questions?
Unfortunately, we didn't get the red line part
Okay.
in our packet.
Okay. I have it if you guys want me to pass it around.
No, just make sure it gets in the packet.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would just add, the other thing we tried to do is use the new positions to supplement the volunteers. We've had a great history of volunteerism in Stoughton. We want to honor and continue that, recognizing that the modeling is changing. A lot of that was driven by the pandemic. Quality of life issues come into play, and we're having a difficult time getting consistent participation from some of the memberships because, quite frankly, there's other things going on. So what we're trying to do is continue to schedule the volunteers the hours they're available and supplement them with the 2 new positions. And then really, as far as people that are affected, there's really only a couple people that are affected. And I think I can let Director Gillingham go through that.
Okay. So through this change on the org chart, you're going to see on the left-hand side, there are a total of 3 job descriptions that are affected by this change. The first one we've talked about, you've approved, which was the EMS fire chief. And then the next one would be that operations support specialist position. That's a position that's in existence right now. We are making a change to that job description as well, which you'll see next. And then the deputy chief EMS. I think the important thing for you to understand, I don't know who's aware or in touch with what's happening within fire and EMS, but our chief, the fire chief is spending a lot of time going between EMS and fire, taking calls. And then the same thing for Director Schimmelfenning. She was spending a lot of her time augmenting the schedule, taking calls. So this, adding in the 2 additional positions that you approved for the 2024 budget should allow the fire chief, EMS, as well as the deputy chief, the ability to spend some time actually working in the department, helping with the recruiting and moving us forward. That was one of the major reasons for asking for this.
Yeah, and basically, I mean, the number of additional hours that our 2 directors were putting in were just not sustainable for them to have quality of life and workplace balance.
I want to also make a point that these position descriptions are coming in front of you tonight, but they are a work in progress as we refine and Chief Rip begins to start his duties. These will be a work in progress.
Alderperson Jensen.
Yes, as it stands now, the Public Safety Committee has the EMS as they're part of. They answered us. How is that going to change?
So under the state statutes, fire falls under PFC. EMS continues to fall under your jurisdiction.
Yeah. So it would still be there even though it is now a EMS fire department.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. So let me make sure that everybody's clear on this. For the 8 EMTs that we're hiring, the 2 additional positions, they will fall under the jurisdiction of the Police and Fire Commission because the fire aspect is there. The volunteers for the EMS will continue to be hired through the HR department, regular, not going through PFC because they don't fall under that jurisdiction. Anytime that there's a combined situation with an AMT firefighter, they will fall over to Police and Fire. Anything else will come to your committee.
And part of the kind of the restructure through attrition, which is how we are trying to go through this, is that EMTs were being interviewed in-house basically, and I've changed that. I want to involve HR into that process because they have some more tools and experience at their disposal, but still have the participation from the EMS.
We'll continue to have, we have an individual who has agreed to help us with the hiring as the subject matter expert, which is a tenured EMT that will assist us. So we're able to appropriately represent the position and the requirements.
And as we go through this process, we eventually feel like we'll have that other position, which will be basically the deputy EMS fire chief. And that would occur through attrition. Right now we have that split out amongst a couple different people, but as they retire at some point, we think that this will be a work in progress as well.
I want to stress again what we talked about during the budget is that through this process, again, there's 3 individuals that are being affected. One is the chief, the other one was the director, is now a deputy chief reporting in, and then that third one is that operations support specialist. There's really an impact of 3 people through this process, but they are significant changes. There is no financial impact at all with these changes, just so everyone's aware.
All right, any questions on this resolution? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 And any opposed? That motion carries. And the third one, Alderperson Reeves.
Thank you, Mayor. Resolution 43, 2024, authorizing and directing the City of Stoughton Common Council to approve the position description changes due to the newly created EMS Fire Chief position. Position descriptions updated include the Operations Support Specialist, Equipment Support Technician Fire, Deputy Chief Fire Marshal, and AEMT Firefighter. And I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Sherlucky. Alderperson Reeves.
And I think the only thing I would add, and Director Gillingham and Mayor Swadley sort of alluded to this, I think the other factor is, a lot of people don't live in town, and so, despite best efforts, not all employers are willing, to let their folks go. So to put it in the simplest terms, I think this restructure really makes us more certain that if any one of us makes an emergency phone call, somebody's going to show up, in a timely manner. And I think that this, I'm comfortable that this is really putting in place. We have a growing city, and so this is, I think, a necessary change. I don't know if you have anything else to add, Director Gillingham.
No, the only thing, Lisa, that I did want to add is the reason that we put together all of these position descriptions in this one resolution is that each of those, the changes are just notifying you that it's EMS and fire. So there's no significant changes there. The other 3 were spelled out separately, and that's why the change with all of them being under one. I think one other very important factor that needs to be brought up is volunteer recognition. Our volunteers are the reason that we have been able to be one of the few communities left in Dane County that was functioning 100% volunteer. And that's a thanks to all of those volunteers that have tirelessly given their time, their holidays, a birthday that they missed out on, to be there to cover for this. This change by no means will replace our volunteers at this point in time. What we're covering is the 6 to 6 that Josh will tell us is where we had that whole 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And many of our volunteers no longer live in the community. We don't always have that support from the other organizations saying, yes, you can leave your job and report to that fire call. So having those full-time individuals here during the day is only augmenting those volunteers. It's not a replacement. So please, if you see a volunteer, thank them for what they've done and what they give. They don't do this for the money. So again, I appreciate your approvals as we go through this, but I want to make sure that we don't lose focus on what the volunteers have done and where they have brought us to, because we're one of the few left.
Yeah, and I would just add that I appreciate the volunteers came to several meetings that we had and really had some heartfelt comments, and I learned a ton, you know, about what some of the challenges, some of the concerns, some of the needs are in the departments, and that's going to be really valuable for us as we move forward to help me understand, especially at budget time, you know, what kind of support that they need, and you know, what are some of the things that you know, Chief Rip is going to, you know, put into place as far as his initiatives. There's a ton of things that we want to do. It's going to take a while to implement them all. We have to go through, identify, prioritize, and then, you know, get after it. But this is kind of a step in the process.
Just one last thing that I want to mention here is we have had some very difficult conversations. We had one last night with all of the EMT and firefighters together and allowing them to share with us. This is change. And that transition going from volunteer only to bringing full-time people in is difficult for them. This is their baby. They grew it from the beginning. So I ask that, again, we give that support and that you understand that this is major transitions for them. The other piece is, I lightly touched on, there has been no compensation change at all for our EMS fire chief. He's taking on another department. And this is no different than what we just did at Public Works. Brett took on 3 additional departments. So they're not doing this for the money. They're doing it because they care about this city. And I just want to make sure that all of you around the table understand that, because I will be coming forward in 2025 saying we really need to look at the compensation on these individuals who are taking on a lot more responsibility. And then the same thing for the volunteer compensation, that we look at that. So I want to preface that I've laid the seed now, that you understand that Josh is getting nothing for this. Brett, no change in compensation. I want to make sure everybody's on the same page there. Thank you.
Right. Director Ellinger?
I think one correction needs to be made in the "be it resolved" paragraph. It should probably read by the Common Council as opposed to the Finance Committee.
Okay, thank you for that. And I think there's, you know, going to be some wordsmithing that'll continue. I know we had some feedback at the committee meeting this week, and like I said, this will be a work in progress, but certainly that one is an easy fix. Alderperson Schumacher.
Just 2 other corrections in this resolution. The in the header, the file number is as 2023 versus 24. And in the second, whereas the Personnel Committee met on March 25th of 24.
All right, anything else? All in favor of the resolution, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
And anybody opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. Thanks for being here, AJ. All right. The next 3 items are all coming, came through Stoughton Utilities last. Alderperson Payton.
Thank you, Mayor. So for Resolution 44 of 2024, there is a new copy that acknowledges the vendor. This was updated due to our agreement last night and the approval by the Utilities Committee. So just as a heads up, to read out the resolution. So the resolution authorizing and directing the proper city officials to enter into an agreement with J&R Underground of Blanchardville, Wisconsin, for Stoughton Utilities Project number S11-23F, multiple year underground electric facility installation unit price contract. And I so move.
Second by Alderperson Hirsch. Any more you want to add to it?
In general context, we needed a new vendor in order to help us with new development of properties, and we have quite a few developments upcoming. So this is an agreement entering into a contract with a vendor who won through the bid process, but I will turn over to Jill for some additional information.
Thank you. Basically, we have used a contractor for many years, probably 40 or so, and had since retired at the end of last year. Recognizing our need to actually go out for bid again, we put this contract together, and the intent with this is for underground facilities for new subdivisions. That's why there's no budget impact basically to this contract. When we do a subdivision, the developer is required to pay for that extension. And so this basically will occur for any projects going forward. The nice thing about this contract, and the reason I appreciate very much with the time sensitivity of moving this forward, is the first place we plan to use this would be for Magnolia Springs and doing the underground work there. As you look through the packet of information that was provided to you, you'll find in there basically draft minutes from the Utilities Committee last night, a memo, the bid ad for bid, as well as Forrester Engineering, who put the contract together for us and did the bidding process for us, and the recommendation letter, and then the all the unit pricing. JNR Underground actually was the lowest bidder for all the underground pricing, but we priced everything. If you can install it and put it out there and it's considered to be underground electrical, we've put it out there. There's a number of items that we anticipate never needing, but we wanted to make sure that we went through the bid process and had those unit pricing in case we were to ever need them. We did a couple analysis last night. We presented to the Utilities Committee an analysis that in the end concluded that JNR Underground was the lowest bidder. We did review that again this morning and found that there were some items in there that our intent was to review Magnolia Springs as far as kind of a base project. Even though despite looking at all of those unit prices for all the items that we bid out, JNR Underground was the lowest bidder. Again, there was a number of items that we typically wouldn't use. And so we wanted to look at a typical project to ensure that we actually awarded this to the lowest bidder. We did that through an analysis that Forrester put together. That was reviewed last night with the Utilities Committee. JNR Underground was the lowest. We reviewed that again this morning just to ensure that, again, it was a good representation. We did find a few things that wasn't necessarily going to be utilized at Magnolia Springs. So we reviewed it again and again found JNR Underground to be the lowest bidder. This contract actually continues. This was a question last night that I actually had wrong, but this contract continues until either party terminates. And then every July, the Handy Whitman index comes out, and so the bid will actually be changed for the following year based on that index, which is a typical metrics to use. If at any point though we find that we believe, we'll review this annually and work with Forrester Engineering because they bid out a lot of underground projects. If we end up finding we think that we can get better pricing if we were to bid this out again, we would be looking to bid it out again.
All right, any questions or comments? I think you said you might do some of it in-house even.
We have the potential to be able to do things in-house, like particularly the terminating, so installing the elbows. So when basically putting in duct, typically we'll pull wire through, then the termination of the conductors, there's an elbow that's placed on it that ultimately then gets seated into a transformer. We can do some of that wiring ourselves. We did want to include that though in this bid, just to, again, make sure that I guess I should back up to some degree. Our contractor in the past that we had was very, very good, but relatively inexpensive. With the ending of that effort and kind of also with the amount of development that we've been seeing going forward, a developer desired for us to do all of this work in-house. We tried to do that. We found in the end that we can do it. We can do it well, however, not very cost effectively. We don't have the equipment readily available to us. We had to do some renting of equipment, but ultimately our staff is just not set up with all the other work that we have out their schedule to be able to do this in a reasonable time frame for these developers. And so we have the opportunity, if we do find if there's workload allows, we can actually do some of the work ourselves. But typically I can see that we will probably have a contractor do all of the work.
All right, Alderperson Schumacher.
Jill, with it as a multiple-year contract, and we have the option that we can send it out to rebid if we think there's an option in there. Does the contractor have another out also if they decide? Okay.
They do. They have the right to terminate. We have the right to terminate.
Okay.
So it's basically an at-will contract for as long as we both are willing to want to continue to participate together.
All right, and no penalties or anything
Nope,
are involved
no
with it?
penalties.
Okay, thank you.
And basically, there's no requirement that any of this work is ever done. If we were to say development stop, basically we do a task order for each development. We provide that to the contractor. They proceed then with that task order. But there's nothing that requires any of this, that they get anything out of this contract in the end.
President Hirsch.
Jill, there was one question. So there are a contractor for a number of these different developments, and I'm sure they're a contractor for other municipalities. Is there like a timeline where they need to get the work done so that it's not delaying the development?
Yes, and that was one thing that we were concerned about. We actually looked at bidding each separate development individually because we had concerns about timing. You know, we've got this kind of blanket contract out there. What's the requirements? What's the thing that's going to force their hand really to move this forward? As part of the contract with this is they have to maintain a bid bond of 5% of the overall contract. And so for the lowest bidder, that's about $180,000. So basically, we put that task order together. We provide them a specific time frame, and we always tell our developers basically there's a 3-week window that we require. A lot of these contractors, especially for a project the size of Magnolia, they probably can get it done in a week, week and a half. But we've given them basically a 3-week window. We're very clear about that with our developers, that this is the amount of time that we anticipate this to take. And then with that task order, basically we force their hand as far as the timing to make sure that this work is done timely.
Alderperson Reeves.
Just a follow-up question, because I was thinking that Director Hebert, during our Public Works meeting, said that for street projects, they could actually have a penalty, financial penalty imposed. Is that the same that you folks would?
It is slightly different with that bid bond requirement that we have at this point in time, but it is kind of the same in the end, that we could actually actively act on that bond and cash it out or work out some sort of arrangement where there would be penalties for them if they did not perform.
Yeah, I think they call that liquidated damages.
They do, yep. Mm-hmm. We definitely have that in our CIP.
All right, any additional questions? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
And any opposed? That motion carries. All right, next one is 46, is it? 45. Oh, we did that. Yep, 46 it is. That would be coming from Alderperson Pete.
Yes, once again, Resolution 46 of 2024, approving a financial agreement between the state of Wisconsin and the city of Stoughton for costs associated with the reconstruction of US Highway 51 from 5th Street to Harrison Road, scheduled to be constructed in 2029. And so moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderperson Butler.
And I am going to turn this over to Director Weiss if she has any information she'd like to provide.
Thank you. So I'm actually going to present this really on behalf of Director Hebert as well. He was not able to attend this evening. This did go through Public Works Committee, and that was unanimously approved on the 21st. And then last night, the Utilities Committee reviewed this on behalf of the utility and kind of the impact. Ultimately, this is an agreement with the DOT for basically detailing what the city obligations are, and specifically laying out what the financial impacts are, or anticipated financial impacts. So you'll see in the agreement that basically $1 million or so utilities will be paying for the water and sewer, the underground work for water and sewer. And then the city is a estimate of $280,000. That's for streetlights, some beacons, some variety of different flashers that they anticipate being, done as part of this project. The DOT does not cover the street construction, sub-base, and all of those things. DOT is taking care of and funding those, as well as the sidewalks. Particularly one item that we did question on is there was a reference to the utility paying for sidewalks, and so we did clarify that if there's any work that's done, say, outside the limits of the DOT project, that we were to impact sidewalks. So if we were, our water main were to extend a couple, half a block outside of the construction limits, and we were to put a service across and that impacted a sidewalk, then we would be responsible for those costs, and that's more than reasonable and understandable with the agreement that they have before you. So we recommend approval. It was unanimous at Public Works Committee, and it was unanimous at Utilities Committee.
President Hirsch?
A couple of questions. First, it's Harrison Street, and I should have caught that last night, since I live on that road, and I'm like, wait a minute, something's off here. And it's on a couple of different places. You have it on the very last paragraph, right? But not that one. And then, because you just sparked a question. If a sidewalk is extended and you have to rip up a sidewalk, is that on the city, or are you going to share it with the owner of the property? I guess I need that clarification too.
If in the end of the day it's as a result of work that is utility infrastructure, we will pay for that cost, because we're basically making improvements. We're doing that on behalf of the utility, and so we will cover the cost of that sidewalk. I don't anticipate really that occurring, but I do appreciate that DOT is very thorough and make sure that they've got everything covered.
Right, and I think that will breathe a sigh of relief for some residents. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Yeah, I would just add, so on here it says it's be constructed in 2029. These DOT projects are advanceable based on funding available. So this one could be moved up a couple years if they have the resources to do it. So what they're trying to do is get all the engineering design work completed now, just in case they're in a position to do that. Obviously, this is going to be a difficult thing for our downtown business owners, because this is going to impact Main Street. And what we're doing now, and you've approved in our CIP, is in the next few years, and even going back to last year, we've been trying to do some of the streets that are going to serve as local detours. When the DOT does the construction, their detours are state highways. For whatever reason, state, county don't play well in the sandbox when it comes to detours. I'll just leave it at that. We know that our locals will find their ways around. So last year, for example, we redid Milwaukee Street. We're going to be doing a section of 4th Street this year and another section next year, as well as some of the other East South Street and some other roads. And then some of the other phases of 51 will be completed before this downtown stretch. So we're doing what we can to make things drivable, but we know this is going to be really disruptive. And we've been having conversations with some of the businesses and the chamber in preparation of this work. Go ahead.
On that, do they anticipate this work between 5th and Harrison Street to be done within a year or 6 months? I mean, just so the local businesses can start kind of prepping, are we looking 6 months or a year out?
I'll do my best to answer that. I think that's really a question of DOT. It will be through the construction season, though, so they may start as early as April and extend to November. I think that's possible, but they will be done within the year, and it will be done during the construction season, which is considered to be kind of spring, summer, fall.
I'm just concerned now that we have Set Maya in May with parades and big festivity. Is that being considered at all?
And we do have ongoing conversations with DOT to kind of recognize that, and so we do share that information back. So they do their very best to accommodate, and we can make sure that in the spec itself, it makes it reference to some of these events so that we can try to work with our contractor to make sure that they work around our city events.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, as Jill mentioned, we do meet with the DOT quarterly, and they have a number of things, including cleaning up that intersection on Jackson Street that we talked about. And you approved the resolution, so that's been forwarded to them. And really to the point where they're even talking about sidewalks with the bricks in front of the Players Theater, the Village Players Theater. So they have a whole list of things that are really important to our businesses and our community that they're going to, work around as they do these projects. Alderperson Jensen?
Yeah, you mentioned the rework of Jackson Street and 51 there. And I had the thought that the lights just don't work, period, as far as I'm concerned. And I'm wondering if they would consider putting in a roundabout there instead. That would prevent, if we had to right in, right off, right out of Halt's Drive there, and was going into a roundabout, that would save people from going into the shopping center or driving further than they needed to. They could just use a roundabout and go right straight down Jackson or out onto 51. So I mean, are they set in stone in using stoplights again?
I would have to ask them. I think the reason the lights were put in there initially, one of them was really for pedestrian and bicycle crossing there. Yeah. People felt more comfortable with a controlled intersection than they did crossing through a roundabout. But I can certainly run it past them. Sometimes they need more or less real estate depending on if it's a roundabout or signal on that particular intersection. That's above my pay grade to know if that's an option or not, but we can run that past them.
I think it's worth looking at.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Director Ellinger?
Just speaking as a former county finance director, both the federal state laws make it very hard for detours to be friendly. For instance, because it's Highway 51 or Federal Highway 51, they cannot make a detour on a local road. It has to be on a county road or a state road. So that's why they're hard to play with, because the statutes require it.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other questions or comments? Nobody on Zoom tonight. You guys are really quiet out there. Good to see you, though. All right, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
And any opposed? None opposed. That motion carries. Last resolution. Alderperson Payton.
Yes, Resolution 47 of 2024, authorizing and directing the proper city officials to enter into an agreement with Fisher Excavating Incorporated of Freeport, Illinois, for the 2024 street and utility construction on 4th Street, East South Street, and 5th Street. Contract of 1/2024. I so move.
Here a second?
Second.
Second by Alderperson Schumacher. Alderperson Payton.
I will once again turn over to Director Weiss, because she speaks so much better about this than I do.
Thank you. So again, I'm without Director Hebert here as well. I'm kind of carrying that hat as well. So we did, the bids came back, and we actually had 5 bidders, and I'm very pleased with that. Just because of the timing of the year, wasn't sure that we would actually get that much interest. In the end, Fisher Excavating is the lowest bidder. We do recommend them. They were vetted out. It's a contractor that we have not worked with in the past. This did go through Public Works Committee, was approved unanimously on the 21st. Utilities Committee last night approved unanimously. Within budget for the street work, water and sewer. So we're very pleased with that coming back. We did include also the parking lot construction at the utility there to have that regraded and paved. Work that we had actually planned to do last year, however, just with timing and a variety of different things, we weren't able to get that work done, so was able to include that in this contract, and that was within budget as well. The timing of this project is set up to work around basically the fair, and so the work on East South Street will happen first with 5th Street, and then later basically we'll transition over to 4th Street so that it's not impactful to the fair and the work there, for the July week that occurs there.
All right, and I would just add that even though the city hasn't worked previously with Fisher Excavating, Strand, our engineers have, so they're familiar with them.
Yeah.
And anything from Public Works you'd like to share?
No, I did want to just thank the folks at Public Works, and I don't know if Utilities was involved, but the food pantry is going to have to move during the 4th Street construction, which is not convenient. I do know that there's been a lot of effort put into trying to find them a place and getting their equipment moved and the refrigerators moved and that sort of thing. So thank you to those who have helped with that. And it's going to be inconvenient, but at least there's a place for them. I think it's going to be at the Mant Center.
Yes.
That's what I heard as well.
So thank you.
Go ahead.
How is this going to impact EMS and getting out and the fire and police?
Director Hebert has been working very closely with EMS regarding this. We just met recently and he talked through the idea that potentially they may even make a straight driveway out the green space there on the RDA site to address this. I think they're still working through that situation. From our perspective, as far as we need to have access in and out, like any other construction project, there's going to be times where access will be problematic. And so EMS obviously needs to have direct access, ability to get out in immediate, when an event occurs. They have talked through also of keeping, I think, the ambulances as a different location. I know that Director Hebert is working out very closely with them. Exactly what that looks like, I don't know. We actually don't plan to do any kind of relocation or anything adjustment. Just because kind of where we sit and the improvements that are coming there, we think there's going to be a day where some storm sewer work, some of the underground work will be impactful, but just like any other development or CIP work where we do street work, the roadway has to be passable. So the contractor is required to do that. So there's going to be a few days, obviously, will be most impactful to our driveway access, but for the most part, it'll be a little bit of a rough ride, but we will continue to have access. So I know Director Hebert is working very closely with EMS to make sure that they've got access and that they have their needs met. Exactly ultimately how they've resolved that, I don't know. But they had talked about even constructing this kind of driveway access so they could just have an immediate straight out and then cross the roadway in one location.
In discussions with Chief Rip, they have talked about having the EMS relocated up to the fire station as well, to completely avoid that area and not have a delay in care.
Any other questions or comments on this one? Okay. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 And any opposed? None opposed, and President Hirsch has something before we entertain the other
Yeah.
motion.
I guess I spaced out during the communications. I just want to remind all council members that we do have a committee of the whole meeting this Thursday at 6 p.m. here to talk about ARPA funding, what we're going to do with the rest of our money in the next year. So put it on your calendars, mark your alarms, and read the packet. And thank you, Dave, for all your work and getting it all together.
All right.
Oh, and I think we forgot that it's Patrick's birthday.
Are we singing?
Please no.
Jonathan was going to
Oh, you've heard me sing?
Jonathan was going to
But I do have treats for afterward. Homemade.
All right. All right. Would you like to make the ceremonial motion then?
I move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Peyton. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Happy birthday.
Any opposed? All right. Have a great night.
Hey, at least you you know, we weren't at 12:30 a.m. for your birthday.